Allison Squires. I am a professor of nursing at New York University College of Nursing, based in New York City, of course. And specifically, my work involves studying how language and translation affects patients, workers, and health systems around the world. One story with my students that they're always surprised with, which is, I got where I am today because I failed a class, and which, given my pedigrees, people don't expect to hear that. And it was just, it was one of those things that happened because it was a bad year, and life happens to you, and you're not always going to get an A. And so that whole experience actually, delayed my graduation from my undergraduate program, but it also set me up to go and study abroad in Mexico, and that was where I sort of landed in this whole idea of global health and tried to find, and that basically has shaped the rest of my life. And it was one of those things where, I thought about giving up on global health for a while because I thought, well, maybe that was just, that was not the career for me, or the opportunities just weren't there. But every time I tried to go away from it, life would steer me back toward working in global health. Usually I have this talk with students when they're coming to me utterly demoralized at the fact that for the first time in their life, they've gotten like a B- or a C, or quote unquote the worst grade they've ever gotten in their life. And or they're really struggling with a class. And, and I tell them my story, and the idea is like, this is not fatal. This is one class in one part of your life, and it's not going to kill your career for the rest of your life. One of the major choices everywhere is facing is all of our health systems around the world were basically designed and all of the economic models supporting them were basically designed to deal with infectious diseases and accidents and the occasional, mechanical repair you might need to your body. And we are really, globally, you see this in just about every country, we're moving into a period where now we have people that are living much longer, and they're living with chronic diseases, and those diseases are expensive, and the health systems and our economic systems were not designed to support that type of long-term care. So we have to, on a global level, we have to be able to rethink how we're going to be taking care of people and how we're going to manage, diseases when they do, chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease. Some types of cancers end up being a chronic disease. And so how do we deal with those types of diseases within our health system spectrum? Because if everybody's going to be living till 80 or 90, we need to have the social, economic, and political supports to be able to sustain that population. And we're in a demographic crossroads, because in about 10 years or so, the birth rate globally is pretty stable, but the aging rate is still on the upswing. So we're going to be in a situation where we have lots of older people and not enough people to take care of them. It's really going to be a lot of major role shifting in healthcare around the world, because we need solutions that are manageable and sustainable in the long run. And I think a lot of those solutions are going to end up landing on nursing personnel. It's about, to a large degree, it's about inclusion in the decision-making process. Taking a look, simple, straightforward, basic policy principles, which is you look at who your key actors are involved in the system, and you make sure everybody's at the table when a decision's being made. And I'm talking from the community health worker or the nurse's aide all the way up to, the hospital CEO or the health system CEO or whomever it happens to be. You have community stakeholders. And yeah, that's much more complicated decision-making process. But, that's when you look at places that have really made good, sustainable changes, then those are the places that are getting the best outcomes that we're really seeing are highly effective. But institutional change is slow and, of course, as we know, exquisitely painful. We have this program at the College of Nursing called the Niche Program, and it's Nurses Improving Care for Health System Elders. And this is a program that started about 10 years ago as a way to help hospitals and healthcare workers deal with the needs of older patients. And, especially when you get beyond about 80, 85, the care needs of older patients are very different from those of regular adults. And so this program is now in 500 hospitals around the country. And I was recently at their conference out in San Diego, and don't think I have ever seen a program where I have seen nursing staff in particular so utterly enthusiastic about an organizational change program, because health workers get quality improvement and change programs thrown at them all the time. And it's sort of like, okay, yes, we'll integrate this, we'll do whatever we need to do. But I've never seen one that has such enthusiasm. And one reason why there's such enthusiasm that they all said, and my qualitative research background coming out here, is that they're like, well, we see that it works. We see that the care is different, patients are different, respond differently, their outcomes are better, families are happier, and they see it in their patient satisfaction scores organizationally. And, and the places that are really exemplar places that have really great interprofessional buy-in and support is where you see the best outcomes happening. Where that starts, though, is it all starts with the nurses. Because, if you're talking about the people who are going to be dealing with the patient, whether it's in a hospital, a nursing home, if it's a home health service, the nurse is going to be dealing with the patient the majority of the time, second only to the family. And so really you start with the nurses, you empower the nurses, you have them drive what's going on in the organization and give them the autonomy to do that. And that's when you see the results happen. And management realizing that, your success comes from putting those people out there and supporting them, and that your role in the background is to make sure it's a background role. If you're a manager, you're a leader, but you're in the background because you've got to support the people who are out there on the front lines and make sure that they have what they need to do in order to get the best, in my case, outcomes from these patients. First thing that nurses talk about is, in terms of the niche program, but in terms of a lot of different programs, is resistance by physicians. And, it's very interesting. I have a joint appointment with our medical school, and I do a lot of interprofessional education work. And it's very interesting looking at our data. And the whole notion of followership it's something that good medical school teachers recognize and value. But the assumption by the students when they're going into medical school is, I'm going to lead, I'm going to be in charge. And, and that's a real mixed bag. And even the literature on interprofessional education and collaboration, if you thematically go through it, like you're analyzing qualitative data, it's really, you see that the primary resistors to this whole model is physicians. And, they have been, their position in society has been reinforced for many, many years, especially in the 20th century, as one of power and maintaining that power and maintaining market control and dominance, even if there are other alternatives that are just as effective. One of the first things is pay attention to the people who don't talk all the time. The people who are, if you're in a meeting or doing whatever and you've got someone who's very clearly paying attention but is not the person who has to speak every time an issue comes up, paying attention to those people, that's, I think, the first thing, because they usually are the ones who can sharply cut through an issue, summarize and synthesize really the heart of what's going on. And so recognizing the quiet among the clatter. That's the first thing. I think the other thing is spending more time recognizing your own triggers and developing more self-awareness of who you are and what your issues are as a leader. In terms of, well, you know what, I know if somebody does this to me, that's one of my triggers. That's going to set me off. And and it's not that you're going to be perfect the next time that you react, but it's just being more working on conscious awareness. Trust your intuition. The other half of why I am where I am right now is because of purely, my gut told me that's what you're going to do. And if I tried to ignore it, then, it didn't matter. I'd eventually go and end up doing that first thing anyway. So I think that's the first thing. And, not everybody necessarily responds to intuition or, trust that as a way to make decisions. But I found it to be much more efficient in the long run. The other thing is when you're faced with a new topic, learn as much as possible, and try and develop more than a superficial knowledge. You have to be slightly better than bar trivia level with your knowledge when you're diving into a new issue. And that may be my PhD training entirely. But to a certain degree, it's also the nurse training as well, because, when you have to get to know a new patient and you have, a short period of time to do that, you have to be able to learn what you know and recognize what you don't know very quickly.
Wow.